Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to say that everyone hates a record-setting new game from Capcom.
Just another day in gaming news, huh? Yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds. It's launched to fantastic reviews and record-setting player counts on PC, and yet its Steam review classification and summarization is currently mixed, thanks to complaints about performance and your usual bout of eye-rolling Capcom DLC.
You don't have to like it, but at least Capcom's still in business and releasing hit games that, a number of people are playing and enjoying. The same, unfortunately, cannot be said for the developers of classics like Shadow of Mordor, Fear, and No One Lives Forever, because Warner Games fully shut down Monolith Productions this week, and Lawrence is still crying himself to sleep.
Yeah, it's been a long, hard week. Got these bags under my eyes. I'm sorry, Monolith. Just come back. Oh, we're going to get Tron 3.0, the canonical sequel. Hey, there was nothing in Legacy that invalidated Tron 2.0, so it's still canon as far as I'm concerned.
Good for you for keeping up with Tron Legacy. We've got a few more sign of the times kind of stories in this week's Inside Games Roundup. BioWare's former co-founder shares some tales of corporate intrigue at Electronic Arts. And Microsoft demonstrates an AI tool that can generate gameplay on the fly.
Finally here, so we better get into the news before AI takes us, this show, over. We lose this job too. To protect us, we have to throw to the one man who's never been accused of having any kind of intelligence, artificial or otherwise, Brian Gaar. Take it away.
These intros just get meaner and meaner as the weeks go by.
I gotta back off, man.
Oh, man.
It's supposed to be a roast, not just an insult. Sorry about that one.
Is it a roast if I cry? The answer is yes. All right, let's talk Monster Hunter Wilds. It's out. It's taken Steam by storm, smashing previous franchise records and solidifying itself as one of the biggest PC game launches in history. It's got over 700,000 concurrent players on its first night, peaked at 1.3 million. So yes, off to a great start. Those numbers smoke those set by its predecessors. Monster Hunter World previously had the record around 330,000 concurrents. Monster Hunter Rise topped out at 230,000. Wilds has already more than tripled those numbers of Rise, showing the series' growing popularity among PC players. It just kind of continues to break into the mainstream. I would say it's fully in the mainstream now.
Absolutely. Critics like it too, actually. The game currently has a 90 on Metacritic. The Verge wrote, quote, Wilds shows that there's still nothing quite like the thrill of a hunt.
What a great front of case quote that they've got there. I'm going to guess those reviewers probably played on PlayStation because the reception hasn't been super smooth, at least on PC. The game currently holds a mixed review score due to complaints about optimization and performance issues on PC. Many players have reported frame rate drops, stuttering, crashes. I had yes to all the above, but I'm kind of used to that. That's just PC du jour sometimes on launch day.
A Japanese developer with a crappy PC port? One common sentiment among reviewers, they're frustrated over the difference between the game's performance during pre-launch open betas and the final release. Some users who had no issues during the beta are now struggling to achieve stable frame rates, even on high-end rigs. I found a quote from user Jolson, who wrote, "This game is everything wrong with PC optimization in 2025.
The Digital Foundry had similar complaints, actually, in a video titled Profound Perf Problems Must Be Addressed. They said that lower-end graphics cards with lower RAM allocations should avoid Monster Hunter Wilds for now, while higher-end hardware can, quote, brute force the game's shortcomings to some degree, but it's still hard to recommend such a flawed technical outing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because some of the professionalism started to crack a little bit. The usual composure started to break down, which is a pretty big deal for very even-keeled British reporting. But they said in very uncharacteristically aggressive language, Monster Hunter Wilds makes for a confusing PC release with staggeringly poor performance on lower-end graphics cards, to the extent that we don't recommend the game at all on these systems, and relatively meager visual rewards given the performance requirements.
Meanwhile, Capcom is being very characteristically nickel and dimey. Changing your character's physical features or your companion's features required, you guessed it, paid microtransactions. So you can still modify your character's hair, your eyebrow color, your facial color, makeup, clothing, but if you want to make bigger changes, you gotta pay up cash.
Yeah, they did that kind of stuff with Dragon's Dogma too. It's the same deal. Suspiciously, these options, along with other microtransactions in Monster Hunter Wilds, were not accessible during the review period, but were mentioned on social media last week. Now, that's a major problem that they were not accessible during the review period because all the people on Metacritic that gave it a 90 might have knocked it a little bit for those microtransactions that have now appeared.
Well, so we can't speak to the Monster Hunter Wilds review period. I remember I got review access for Dragon's Dogma 2, and they did send a full PDF with like all the DLC and the planned prices and everything like that. So for Dragon's Dogma, which was the last time people got mad about DLC, there was information about it in the review document or whatever. And for what it's worth, because I actually looked this up, I wanted to change the spelling of my character's name. So yeah, it told me that I needed a voucher for that. And then I was like, well, what are the vouchers? $6 for a 3-pack. I don't know if you can buy them individually, but that's what came up. So is that too much? Is that too little? I don't know. $2 to change your character's name kind of sucks. But the game is also really big and huge and fun to play. I'm not gonna not play it because they asked $2 to change my name. I'll just make do with the name for now. So, but it does run a little funky. It looks a lot better. The HD texture pack helps, but also, yeah, it kills performance pretty hard. So confusing because, yeah, previous RE Engine games ran really reasonably well out of the gate. The Resident Evil remakes were pretty good on PC. Oh, who knows what's going on here? Hopefully a patch or two will smooth it all out.
I've gotten very lucky with Monster Hunter Wilds. I haven't had any crashes, none of that stuff. And usually I do, because Lawrence had a major crash. The entire computer crashed while we were playing yesterday.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Full hangs, like the audio was still playing, but nothing else would work. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Jeez, yeah, that's really... I have not had those. I will say the microtransaction stuff, to me, the internet is always warning about the slippery slope of like the fact that they're charging $2 to change your name or whatever. And that's a sort of a herald for the things to come, that there might be worse microtransactions in the future if people continue to support this. So I understand that, especially the fact that you paid $70 for this game. So if you're having, this is what I always say, if you're having trouble with Monster Hunter Wilds performance problems on Steam, and then also you've got to be in your bonnet about microtransactions, just get a refund. Just get a refund. Play the game for an hour or two, get a refund. Sometimes Steam will give it to you. If you play for 3-4 hours, you still get a refund. So just do that.
Well, unfortunately, that's Warner Brothers Games decided to take that strategy with an entire developer. They have refunded Monolith Productions, god damn it. Warner Brothers Games has shut down 3 studios. We lead with Monolith because it's the one most people know and the one that I'm personally the most heard about. But yes, they shut down 3 studios, including Monolith Productions, the nearly 31-year-old studio behind Middle-earth's Shadow of Mordor and its sequel, Shadow of War. It also canceled Monolith's much-hyped Wonder Woman game.
Warner Brothers told Kotaku in a statement, "We have had to make some very difficult decisions to structure our development studios and investments around building the best games possible with our key franchises, Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, DC, and Game of Thrones." The decision follows years of internal struggles, creative clashes, and financial misfires, as reported by Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who gave some details on the studio's downfall.
Yeah, the problems for Monolith Productions began in 2017 after the release of Shadow of War, which, while commercially successful, failed to reach the heights of its predecessor, Shadow of Mordor. Rather than continue with another Middle-earth game, Monolith wanted to break new ground with a brand new IP, codenamed Legacy. However, Warner Brothers Games, which was increasingly focused on leveraging established franchises, had little interest in investing in original properties. So despite Monolith's persistence, WB pulled the plug on Legacy in 2021.
That cancellation proved to be a turning point for the developer, triggering an exodus of leadership and key developers. Many of them later formed Cliffhanger Games under EA, where they are now developing a Black Panther game. With a depleted team, Monolith was forced to pivot to a new Wonder Woman game, which was greenlit in mid-2021. However, the rushed timeline and lack of experienced personnel set the project on unstable footing from the start.
Yeah, and just 6 months after development began, Warner Brothers officially announced the Wonder Woman game at the Game Awards, but behind the scenes, there were some issues. Monolith debated whether to use its in-house engine or switch to Unreal 5. They ultimately stuck with their proprietary tech, but key developers who had deep knowledge of the engine had already left, and that led to a lot of technical setbacks.
Yeah, that's what happens. By late 2023, Warner Brothers decided to reboot Wonder Woman, stripping into Monolith's iconic Nemesis system, which is too bad because everybody likes that, in favor of a more traditional action-adventure approach akin to God of War. The Nemesis system, a standout feature of the Middle-earth games, was initially reworked for Wonder Woman, with NPCs becoming allies rather than enemies, and that sounds so cool. However, this approach was abandoned as WB sought a more mainstream direction.
And we're probably realizing that we have to start stripping features out to ship this game at some point. Yeah, it's rough. The closure of Monolith also raises questions about the fate of the Nemesis system itself. The innovative mechanic, which allowed enemies to remember past encounters and like pick up buffs and debuffs and behavior patterns, pretty cool. It was patented by Warner Brothers in 2021. This is the fun part. Despite Monolith's shutdown, Warner Brothers retains the rights to the system until at least 2036, provided it continues to pay the necessary patent fees.
And I'm sure they'll do a great job with it. The other studios closed were Player First Games and Warner Brothers San Diego. And the closures follow some really rough months for Warner Brothers. Last month, Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment president David Haddad stepped down after 12 years at the helm. And in December, nearly 100 developers were laid off from Warner Games Montreal.
Yeah, these cuts followed Warner Brothers Discovery's report of an additional $100 million impairment, citing the underperformance of Multiverses, their free-to-play fighter. It was recently announced that the game will be delisted, with all online functionality shutting down in May of 2025. So Warner Brothers basically just tax write-off after tax write-off after tax write-off.
Warner's pretty rough. It's weird to me that people haven't set their sights on them as like the pinnacle bad player in the industry, because they suck, and they have for a while. I'm worried for NetherRealm. NetherRealm is another American treasure, kind of like Monolith, that we don't have many of them, man. They're getting killed. So I would prefer to that to stay alive. I'm hoping that, well, I guess Monolith already, a lot of the top brass already reformed. It's just a shame to think about all that talent evaporating into the ether. So it sucks, but yes, when you're tempted to get mad about the absurdity of $2 character DLC or whatever, it can get so much worse. If you want to talk about slippery slope, there are so many games that are already there. Capcom chose not to be that bad, all right? Like they chose to make this game and release it, and it's still under their auspices and under their own tech. I'm just saying, all right? It's not like Capcom didn't charge more because they didn't think about it. They chose not to. There are companies that do choose to do that, and they're much more cutthroat about it. So don't pretend like wiggling your hands in a forum thread is gonna move any needles. Anyway, that's my rant.
We got a peek into the behind the scenes of the BioWare EA relationship recently. A co-founder of the studio reflected on their complex relationship with EA. This was on the My Perfect Console podcast. Greg Zeshuk acknowledged that while some fans blame EA for BioWare struggles, the reality far more nuanced.
Usually is. Here's a quote. I like to comment that EA gives you enough rope to hang yourself. You have to learn to work within the structure, and I think we did quite well. However, the corporate environment wasn't for him. He said, quote, I knew by year 2 that I was going to leave at some point. I just didn't know when.
I know that feeling. Yeah. Zeschuk's final project was Star Wars The Old Republic. This was a massive bet, and had it been a, quote, $2 billion a year successful, end quote, kind of project, it might have led to his group taking over EA, quote, from the inside, being the corporate pirates that we are, end quote. Yeah, I really wonder how that would have worked. Instead, both he and fellow co-founder Ray Muzica left the industry in 2012.
Now that would have been awesome. If that had happened, if they took over EA.
I'm trying to imagine how. Like, you can get leverage, but I don't know that you get, like, company acquisition leverage if you have one hit. And it's recurring revenue, which is also leverage, but it's not, I don't know if it's enough to usurp an entire company like EA. But good on him for thinking that it could have been.
He also talked about one of his biggest regrets, and that was launching Jade Empire late in the original Xbox's life cycle, rather than as an Xbox 360 launch title. It was the worst advice, absolute moronic advice, he said, which was, I believe, a reference to advice he got from Microsoft. And he said, we just missed. We should have pushed that.
Yeah, they probably needed big releases in the twilight years of the Xbox. But also, I have another theory. Jade Empire wasn't that good.
Oh, I was going to say it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce. You could take it.
No, that's good. That's good that we agree, because I think a lot of people didn't like Jade Empire. I'll be honest with you, it might have sold more if they had actually, done it as a launch title for the 360. Regardless, maybe it wasn't the greatest.
Cool idea, though. I like the idea of an action adventure that's set in, like, big, goofy 80s Hong Kong wuxia, like, action fantasy. That's awesome. Maybe someday Black Myth Wukong. We'll get that game, Black Myth Wukong. Microsoft this week showed off an AI development tool, and the future is now, I guess. It looks like AI is getting closer and closer to making games itself. I actually got to attend a press briefing for this, so it's pretty cool. Microsoft unveiled Muse, an AI tool that can generate 18-minute songs that move through 5 acts and have a British man at a piano. It's a music thing. Anyway, the Muse is an AI tool that can generate cutscenes traditionally created by human developers. It can actually generate gameplay, though, too. It's interactive.
Oh.
Yeah. This is a pretty cool thing. This is built using 7 years of gameplay data from Bleeding Edge. This is the Xbox multiplayer game made by Ninja Theory. Muse marks a breakthrough in generative AI for gaming.
Here's a quote. If you haven't seen any of this generated gameplay footage before, you might think these are just clips from a video game, said Katja Hoffman, a senior principal research manager at Microsoft.
I will say kind of an interesting thing that I've heard about AI is that it could be really interesting for use in making MMORPGs, because then like everything could be kind of procedurally done and everyone wouldn't figure it out immediately and post it on YouTube, which completely changed the genre. But I digress. The technology, trained on 1 billion video game images paired with controller inputs, creates realistic in-game interactions. Microsoft's Xbox team and other industry leaders really want to leverage AI because game development costs are sky high and they've surged in recent years while sales have kind of stagnated industry-wide.
Yeah, the approach is controversial, though, to say the least. Players worry that generative AI could compromise game quality, while studio employees who have already endured waves of layoffs and less than ideal working conditions are understandably worried it would lead to further job losses.
I will say this. You probably don't have to worry about this for at least another 10 years because there's no way they're making a video game with AI that you could play right now. Absolutely none. And also, it definitely will be compromising game quality because things made by humans are generally better than things made by AI.
So we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. Human beings, by and large, do not have very high standards. So unfortunately, I think AI can probably do a pretty good job of copying the games that are already very popular. I don't think that's going to break anyone's behavior patterns. Like, I don't think it's going to get better. But here's the fun thing, though. They did show it running real time. It was running at 300 by 100 at 10 hertz. So tiny postage stamp, really choppy. But essentially, the way the AI works is, like the story said, it pairs inputs to frame data. So the AI gets trained on, after you hit the A button in this situation, what are the next frames likely to look like? And now you can decouple that from the game itself and just have this trained data, and then you hit your buttons and you get a similar response back. They showed a demo where they copy and pasted a barrel like into the frame data, and then they hit it, and then the AI knew that the barrel should explode. So it can actually react to spontaneous inputs and spontaneous additions. That said, it all looked kind of warbly and dreamy and smeary the way that AI does. But it's still a really cool idea. So here's my theory, is that eventually you can train an AI model on a game set, and then the AI model will be smaller and more efficient to transfer than the actual game data itself. Kind of like a demo scene thing. Like you can get 32 kilobyte games that expand into like full 3D shooters just because it's very efficient with generative math on the fly on your computer. I asked a couple of tech questions in the demo, so this is just kind of fun coffee stuff. The Muse model is trained on 7 years of bleeding edge gameplay. All of that training took approximately 170 hours, and the model itself, once trained, is 20 gigabytes, which is less than the size of Bleeding Edge, but still, it can only do a decent job of approximating what Bleeding Edge looks like while it's playing. But still, I think as a tool, not necessarily as an end product, I can kind of see some applications of this, especially 5-10 years down the road. I also worry that it will let games so rapidly test player response to stuff that the game will adjust on the fly, not for the sake of fun, but for engagement. Games like Call of Duty and stuff like this are already really good at it, about hitting you with daily logins and daily quests to give you points to march you down this meter so you can unlock a skin. I'm worried when games get to the level of feedback that TikTok has, where you know like fractions of a microsecond if people are flipping through a video or not. If a game can spin on that on the fly while people are playing, that's pretty scary. That means that a game will fully just become a masturbatory fantasy that's purely designed to tickle your monkey brain and nothing else. So I don't want to see that, but I think that's what this tech is going to get used for.
Sold.
Brian with VR helmet on, comatose on his lazy boy. Auto jacker on his waist going to town.
All right, let's do a 5-second review. This is for Monster Hunter Wilds. All right, I didn't want to cut in on what you were saying, Bruce. I have been playing Monster Hunter since the Wii days. My PC could not handle this. I asked for a refund. Got a refund. We'll see again in 6 months when you fixed it.
Good job, Brian. Way to go. All right, let's talk about the upcoming games for this week. First, Carmen Sandiego. The Scarlet Super Thief Carmen Sandiego is back. Adorn Carmen's signature red hat and play as the vigilante herself to navigate a world of espionage, utilizing high-tech gadgets, and ultimately capturing Vile. It comes to every single platform March 4th.
Ah, the best. 2 Point Museum. As curator, the design and management of your expanding museum is in your hands. Send your team of partially trained experts on expeditions in search of rare and mostly well-preserved artifacts. When, and hopefully not if, your experts return from their adventure, proudly display their fantastic finds in your museum. You'll unlock new locations as you decide where the next adventure takes you and complete a sticker book to document your journey as a souvenir of your discoveries. Comes to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X March 4th.
Next up, we got Fragpunk. Fragpunk is a fast-paced 5v5 hero shooter with power-up cards that show... It's just every word all in a row. With power-up cards that change the rules of each round. Choose your hero, your weapons, and pick from a selection of cards that dramatically change the rules of engagement. Fragpunk comes to PC and Xbox Series X March 6th.
Next up, Slime Heroes. You are the last slime and the only slime that can save your home from the corruption consuming it. Of course it's corruption. Play alone or with a friend to find different weapons. Dynamically create your own magical abilities and express the way you want to adventure in this Slimes-like action adventure. It comes to PC and Xbox Series X March 6th.
Sorry We're Closed is an eccentric, story-driven survival horror game about demons, angels, and what happens when both sides collide. A mix of classic fixed-camera exploration and arcade-style shooting where Michelle must use her third eye to see between worlds, uncover secrets, and solve puzzles. Comes to the PS4, PS5, Switch, Xbox One, and the Xbox Series X March 6th.
Yeah, there's some Killer 7 energy in Sorry We're Closed. I was into it. Speaking of games that I'm into, Brian, this might be for you too. Suikoden 1 and 2, HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dune and Unification Wars. A hero's destiny is written in the stars. The legendary Konami JRPGs Suikoden 1 and 2 have now been remastered in HD. This combo pack comes to PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One on March 6th. I'm presuming modern consoles too, but we don't need that power for Suikoden.
And finally, Split Fiction. Embrace mind-blowing moments as you're pulled deep into the many worlds of Split Fiction, a boundary-pushing co-op adventure. Mio and Zoe are contrasting writers. One writes sci-fi and the other writes fantasy, who become trapped in their own stories after being hooked up to a machine designed to steal their creative ideas. They'll have to rely on each other to break free with their memories intact, working together to master a variety of abilities and overcome diverse challenges while jumping between sci-fi and fantasy worlds in this unexpected tale of friendship. It comes to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X March 6th.
God, that looks so wholesome. I'm excited for that. And co-op games in general. Gotta love them. Speaking of co-op, we have some patrons that support this show. They're our cooperative partners. They're out there, they're gaming, they're scrounging up money to help out our productions, and they're pinnacle gamers because they've already hunted every monster in Monster Hunter Wilds already. Redden 003, John Warden Gallardi, Zach DeHack, Blunt Smoking Anus Destroyer, Talia Monochrome, Nick Calderon, Dylan Hiley, and Null Test. Thank you for the support.
These Inside Games patrons have already been hunted by every monster in Monster Hunter Wilds. That's bad for them. Spirit Bear, Tito 007, Baku Bomb, Scotty Ryan, Rook, Pitstrip, Keto White, and Lenny Neves.